Hello everyone and welcome back. In this video, we are going to continue to answer the question paper of number patterns. In the previous video, we have answered 4.1 up until 4.1.3. So we are going to answer 4.2 and move on to the other questions. So now 4.2 says that hence or otherwise calculate the value of 1 plus 3 plus 5 plus all up until 43. If we look at this pattern that we have here, is the pattern that we get to determine the number of dots in the terms. For example, in term number 1, we just have 1 there. But in term number 2, we have 1 plus 3. And then in term number 3, we have what? We have 1 plus 5. So do you see that this is a pattern that determines the what? The number of dots in each term. And remember, in the previous video, we said to determine the number of dots, we're just going to say, for term 1, we're going to have 1 squared, therefore that is 1, that is the number of dots. And then for term number 2, we say 2 squared, we get 4, that is the number of dots. And then for 3, we're going to say 3 squared, we get 9. Moving on like that. That is how we determine what? We determine the number of dots we have. So now, if we look at what we are looking for, we have this question as what? 1 plus 3 plus 5. And then the last term is 43. So looking at this pattern here, we can see that this pattern is what? Is a linear pattern, because now the difference is constant. For example, if you say 3 minus 1, you get 2. Then if you say 5 minus 3, you get 2. Therefore, this pattern has a constant difference. So therefore, this is a linear pattern. So but now, if we want to determine what position is this term of 43, so that we can get the sum of our dots, we will use what? The linear pattern equation. So first thing, we determine the general term. So we know the general term of a linear pattern is A plus n minus 1 multiplied by D. So the A represents the first term, the D is the difference, and then now the Tn will represent the last value because we are looking for the position of the last value. So we're going to substitute here where we see Tn, we're going to substitute 43, and therefore the value of A is 1. So now we can determine what is the value of n because the difference is 2. So if we simplify this out, we should get the value of n. So we're going to get 43 here. Then we have 1 plus, remember it's going to be 2 multiplied by n, 2 multiplied by negative 1. So this will be 2n minus 2. So now we can move 1 to the other side and negative 2 to the other side. So we have what? We have 43. So 1 will be minus, 2 is negative, it's going to be plus, and then we have what? We have 2n. So now 43 minus 1 is going to be 42, plus 2, that is going to give us 44. So we have 44 2n. To get the value of n, we divide both sides by 2, and therefore the value of n is going to be how much? Is going to be 22. So now, if we look at what we have here, for example, if we wanted to add this thing here, 1 plus 3, we just say 2 squared because we get that behavior on the second term. So it's just going to be 4. So if we wanted to add 1 plus 5 plus 1 plus 3 plus 5, we just say 3 squared, we get that. So now if we have what? If we have the term number, for us to get the sum of this whole thing, we're just going to say this is the same thing as 22 all squared. So that will give us the sum of the whole thing. So therefore, the sum of that whole thing is just going to be 22 squared. And therefore, if you put 22 squared on our calculator, we get the value to be 484. So that will be the sum of all those values. So now if we move to the next pattern, we have question number 3. And now the question says what? Consider the linear sequence. They already tell us now this is a linear sequence. And then the linear sequence is 5, 8, 11, and then B, and then 17. So if this is a linear sequence, we must confirm that is true. So we're going to say what? The term in front minus the term at the back. So it's 8 minus 5, which will give us 3. And therefore 11 minus 8 will give us 3. So now if the difference is consecutive between two terms, so it's going to be consecutive through the next terms. So therefore to get the value of B here, we're just going to add 3. And therefore we'll have to get 3 to add to get 17. So 3.1.1, it says write down the value of B. So the value of B is just going to be what? It's just going to be B is equal 11 plus 3, of which is going to make B to be 14. So remember now we are just adding 3 to get to the next term. That is how we determine the value of B. So 3.1.2, it says determine the nth term of the sequence. So we already know that this sequence is an arithmetic sequence or a linear sequence. Therefore, we can use our general term to say Tn is equal A plus n minus 1 multiplied by D. So to do that, we substitute the value of A. Remember, A is the first term. So the first term is 5. Then we say n minus 1. Our difference is what? Is 3. So the general term is going to be 5. And then we say 3 multiplied by n. 3 multiplied by negative 1. Therefore, that is going to give us 3n minus 3. So the nth term or the general solution for this problem is going to be Tn is equals to 3n, and then 5 minus 3 is going to give us positive 2. So this will be our general term for the problem. The next question that comes, it says, calculate the value of the 15th term of the sequence. So now that we have the general term, to calculate the value of the 15th term, we just substitute where we see n 15 and then we get the value. So we're going to say term number 15 is equals to what? So where we see n, we put 15, and then we just put that in your calculator to get the value of term number 15. So it's 3 times 15 plus 2, of which is 47. So 3.1.4, it says, which term in the sequence is equal to 83? So we are given what? The Tn, and then we have to look for n. So we're going to still use our general solution to say now Tn is equal 3n plus 2. But now we have the value of Tn as 83, and we are looking for the position which is n. So we're going to substitute Tn as 83, and then we're going to solve for the value of n. So if we move 3 to the other side, it's going to be negative 3. I'm sorry. This is 2 here. Our general term here, this is 2. So we have plus 2 there, plus 2 there. So if we put 2 to the other side, we're going to have what? 83 minus 2 equals to 3n. So now this is going to give us 81, which is equal to 3n. And then if we divide both sides by 3, the value of n is going to be how much? 81 divided by 3. That is 27. So this means what? This means term number 27 has the value of 83. So that is how you would solve the problem. So now if we move on to 3.2. So question 3.2 here, it says what? It says, consider the pattern below created by using a number sequence, which is what? Which is 2, 6, 10, 14, 18, moving on like that. So the first thing that we have to do is to determine whether this pattern is it a linear pattern. But how do we do that? We just say the term in front minus the term at the back. So it's 6 minus 2, that is 4. 10 minus 6, that is 4. Then 14 minus 10, that is 4. So we can see that this is what? This is a linear pattern. So if we look at the way they are representing our linear pattern, it's just going to be what? This is the first term, term 1, term 2, term 3. Looking at this, we have term 1, term 2, term 3, like that. So it's term 1, term 2, term 3, and then we have term 4, term 5, term 6, like that. So they're actually representing our pattern in a triangular way. So, but now, what pattern do we see here? We see now in the first row, we only have one term. In the second row, we have 2 terms. In the third row, we have 3 terms. Moving on like that. So that is the pattern that we see from this triangle. So the first question that we get, which is 3.2.1, they say calculate the sum of the numbers in the 8th row. So now, firstly, what are the numbers in the 8th row? We don't know what are the numbers in the 8th row. But now, we know that we can determine the position or the value of the first term of the 8th row. How can we do that? Remember, we said now this is term number 1. So we know that if we want the term on this row here, it's just going to be 1 term. And then the terms on the second row is going to be 2 terms. So for example, if you are looking for the first term of what? Of the third row, you're going to add all the numbers on the top. For example, the second row and the first row. So it's going to be 1 plus 2. That is going to give us 3. So that means we have 3 terms before we get to this term here of the 4th term. Let me try to explain that again. So what is happening is that we know we have 1 term on the first row, and then we have 2 terms on the third row. So to determine now which position is this term here, we're just going to say 1 plus 2, and therefore we get 3. Therefore, this term here, it will be term number 4 because it starts after the second row. So the same thing we will do now. If we wanted to determine the position of this first term of row number 5, we're going to say, okay, in row number 1, we have term 1. In row number 2, we have 2 terms. Row number 3, we have 3 terms. Row number 4, we have 4 terms. So now to determine the position of the term that has 44, we're going to say how much? We're going to say 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. So how much is that going to give us? We're going to put it in a calculator. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. So that is giving us 10. So therefore, this position of the term here, which is 42, is going to be position number 11. So now let us count to see if that is true. Okay. So this is going to be what? This is going to be term 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So that statement works for us. So now, for us to be able to determine the sum of the 8th row, so that means we must determine which position is term number 8. So how do we do that? We say, okay, so term number 8, the first term on the 8th row is going to be what? It's going to be 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7. Remember now, we don't add the row that we are at. So now, up until the 7th row, we have how many terms? So this is going to be 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7, which is 28 terms. So therefore, the 8th row is going to have the first term as term number 29. So now that we know that the first term of the 8th row is term number 29, we can determine the value of term number 29. Remember, we know this pattern is what? Is an arithmetic pattern. We can determine what? The general solution, and then we can also determine the value of term number 29. So we're going to say now, okay, Tn is the same thing as what? As A plus n minus 1 multiplied by D. So now, to determine the value of that term. This is going to be the position. Remember, this is position number 29. So we can substitute the position together with A and D on our equation so that we can determine the value of term number 29. So the value of A is how much? Is the first term of the pattern, which is 2. And then we are looking for the value of term number what? 29. So remember now here on end, you must put, we are looking for term number 29. And therefore, where you see n, you put 29 minus 1. And the value of D is 4 there. So therefore, the value of term number 29, which is the first term on the 8th row, is going to be how much? 2 plus 29 minus 1 into 4. So that will give us 114. So now, if the first term of the 8th row is 114, we already now on the 8th row, we're going to have 8 terms, because now you see now on the first row, you have 1 term. On the second row, you have 2 terms. Moving on like that. That is why we determine that the first term of the 8th row is going to be 29, is because these rows, they have the terms that are equal to the row. For example, in row number 18, we have 8 terms. So the first term of our term number of our 8th row is going to be 114. So therefore, to get the next 8 terms, we're going to do what? We're just going to add 4 to the term so that we get those 8 terms we are looking for. So this is just going to be 114, and then we're going to have 114 plus 4, which is going to be 118. 118 plus 4, and that is going to be 122. 122 plus 4 is going to be 126. And moving on like that, we're going to get 130, 134, 138, and then 142. So that will be the 8 terms we have in the 8th row. So now to determine the sum of what of them, we're just going to add them together. So we're just going to say the sum of what of the terms in the 8th row is going to be this plus that plus all of them. We just add them together. So now in our calculator, we're going to say 114 plus 118 plus 122 plus 126 plus 130 plus 134 plus 138 plus 142. That will give us the sum of all the terms in the 8th row, which is 1024. Okay, so now the last question says what? Says determine the mean of the numbers in what? In the 20th row. So now remember, now when you talk about the mean, this simply means the average. Okay, so but now we are talking about the average of what? Of the numbers in the 8th row. So we have to do the very same thing. We determine the first number of the 20th row, Then after we have the first term of the 20th row, we can determine all the 20 terms. And then we add all of them together. The average means what? We just divide them by 2. So let us try to do that. We're going to say, okay, all the number of the first term of what? Of the terms that are in the 20th row is going to be what? Is going to be first term of 20th row is going to be 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. Remember, we just stop at 19 so that we can determine the first value of the 20th row. So that is going to be how much? That is going to be 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 plus 9 plus 10 plus 11 plus 12 plus 13 plus 14 plus 15 plus 16 plus 17 plus 18 plus 19. So we get what? We get 190 terms. But now the first term in the 20th row is going to be term number what? Term number 191. So to determine what? The value of the term number 191, which is the first term in the 20th row, we're going to use what? We're going to use our general solution, which is this solution that we have there. Okay, so we can just say, okay, we have what? We have Tn, which is a n minus 1 multiplied by d. So we know the first term of the sequence is 2, and therefore the number of terms that we have is we are looking for term number 191. So where we see n, we put 191 minus 1, and then our difference is how much? Our difference is always 4, because it is a constant difference. It's 4 there. So we're going to substitute our difference as 4, and therefore we put everything into the calculator to determine the value of what? Of term number 191. So this is going to be 2 plus 191 minus 1 multiplied by 4, and that will give us term number, the value of 762. So if we have the value of 762, what we're going to do, we're going to add the 4s. We're going to add 4, add 4, add 4, add 4, add 4 like that, so that we get 20 terms. So this is kind of a very long problem. So we're going to say the first term is what? In the 20th row, we have 762. Then if we add 4, we get the next term. So this is going to be 766. We add 4. 770. We add 4. 774. We do all that up until we get what? We get all the 20th terms. Okay, I see now this is just going to be a very long problem for me. So now after we do all that, you add all of them together, you add all those 20th terms. And then after you add all the 20 terms, you're going to find that the value of all that 20 terms is going to be how much? It's going to be 16,000. Is going to give, the sum is going to give you 16,000. And then after you get the 16,000, to get the mean, you will say what? That 16,000, which is the sum of these 20th terms, you're going to divide it by the total number of the terms, which is 20 terms, and therefore you get the mean. Remember, the mean means the average. You divide it by the 20. The average is what? Is the total numbers divided by the total terms. The sum of the numbers divided by the total terms. So if you put that in your calculator, you should get your mean as 800. So that is how you will solve the problem. Thank you very much.